You're listening to Weird Medicine with Dr. Steve on the Riotcast Network, riotcast.com.
Weird Medicine contains mature contents that may be offending to some listeners.
Let me write.
What did I do wrong then? Your all's house is like an oven.
I've got diphtheria crushing my esophagus. I've got Ebola virus dripping from my nose. I've got the leprosy of the heartbound, exacerbating my incredible woes. I want to take my brain out and blast it with the wave, an ultrasonic echographic and a pulsating shave. I want a magic pill for all my ailments, the health equivalent of Citizen Kane. And if I don't get it now in a tablet, I think I'm doomed and I'll have to go insane. I want a requiem for my disease, so I'm paging Dr. Steve. Dr. Steve.
It's Weird Medicine, the first and still only uncensored medical show in the history of broadcast radio, now a podcast. I'm Dr. Steve with my little pal, Dr. Scott, the traditional Chinese medical practitioner who keeps the alternative medicine wackos at bay. Hello, Dr. Scott.
Hey, Dr. Steve.
This is a show for people who had never listened to a medical show on the radio or the internet. If you've got a question, you're embarrassed to take your regular medical provider. If you can't find an answer anywhere else, give us a call at 347-766-4323. That's 347-POOHEAD. If you're listening to us live, the number is 754-227-3647. That's 754
Bear Nip.
That's what I like there, Dr. Scott. Follow us on Twitter at Weird Medicine, at DrScottWM, and at Lady Diagnosis. Visit our website at drsteve.com for podcasts, medical news, and stuff you can buy, or go to our merchandise store at cafepress.com/weirdmedicine. Most importantly, we are not your medical providers. Take everything here with a grain of salt. Don't act on anything you hear on this show without talking it over with your doctor, nurse practitioner, physician assistant, pharmacist, chiropractor, acupuncturist, yoga master, physical therapist, clinical laboratory scientist, registered dietitian, or whatever. So whenever anybody writes me and complains that I didn't say their specialty, I just throw it on the list. Who gives it?
Nobody cares.
All right. Hey, I've talked on this show multiple times. There used to be two, now three podcasts that I never miss.
Right.
One is Voss and Bonnie's My Wife Hates Me, because it's
obvious.
It's just a shit show, and it is awesome. And that Bonnie McFarlane, their kid, have you heard this story that Rich Voss told about their kid? She's now 11.
Okay.
She's growing up with these two comedians, and both of them have, really acerbic wit, right? Mm-hmm. And Bonnie McFarlane particularly, she just likes to say shitty things for no reason. Okay. And she makes people mad doing it. But if you get her, and I don't understand how other comedians don't get it, but she's hilarious. And this kid, Raina Voss, has picked up this, she's got a double dose of sense of humor genes.
Okay.
And you remember Tim Dillon? You met Tim. He came down, did a show for us for ETN Comedy. Really brilliant comedian, up and coming, going to be huge. His the crowd here loved him.
Yes.
And but he has an issue. He likes to eat. And so Raina and Bonnie were apparently at the Comedy Cellar doing something with Tim. And when they left, when they were leaving, Raina turns around and says, "See you later, fatso," to Tim Dillon. and this 11-year-old girl.
No.
And when they get out to the street, Bonnie says, "Look, he's my friend. I'm working with him. You have to be nicer to people. You have to be nice to him." So the next day they were back doing this thing, and when they were leaving, Raina turns to him and says, "It was a pleasure to see you today, fatso."
Oh no. Oh no.
So that
gosh.
kid is somebody to watch. I love it when they're on the show. Well, anyway, so Voss and Bonnie is one. Michael Malice, Nightshade, is another one. I listen to him every night when I'm doing my ablutions before I go to bed, because he's on from 11 to 11:30. And the third one is DC On Screen. These two guys, Jason Goss and David C. Robertson, do this podcast. And for some reason, I love these guys. I've been on their show. They've been on our show. And I'm welcoming them back today. Hello, Jason and David. Thank you for being on the show today.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, it's we've done this kind of bit in the past where Jason and David will ask me comic book related medical questions. And one of them, were you guys going to ask me the one about the chiropractor in... not Nanda Parbat. What's the name of that place with the pit?
Did they have a name?
Rises?
What's the name? What's the name
I
of
thought
it?
it was just Tunisia.
Oh, okay.
Was it Tunisia?
Tunisia. I don't know. I thought that was the name of that place. But anyway, I didn't know if we were going to talk about that today again, because I think I did that on your show, but I don't think I did it on my show. And I came up with...
I think everyone needs to know.
I do too. I think I really came up with an interesting answer for that, and I'd like to look smart on my own show. But
sure.
So maybe we could get to that at some point today. But they do that, and then I just like to talk to them about DC stuff, and they also have a Patreon. It's patreon.com/DC Onscreen, where they'll actually branch out and do some Marvel things and other things. They have Jason's pick of the week, and they did a review of Endgame, which I found very entertaining, and I agreed with 100%. But anyway, it's great to have you guys on. I've got a bunch of questions for you about the DC Extended Universe and DC TV stuff, and you're the guests. I'll let you guys go first.
You want to hit them up? All right, I got some questions for you.
Sure.
Let me pull it back up.
Okay.
All righty. So the first one, we'll start at the bottom of the list since it's the closest.
Okay.
Basically, if you've been watching Arrow recently.
I have not. I gave up on Arrow about 2 seasons ago. I made it through half the Damien Dark season, and then I just kind of lost interest. Down the road, I'll get influenza again, and I'll be, this is what happened to me. I got influenza, and they forced me to be out of work for 7 days, and I watched 4 seasons of Arrow, in 5 days.
Nice.
So that's how I got into it. And then my son really liked it, and he went a little farther than I did, but I kind of lost interest. So I don't know what's going on now.
Well, you're about halfway right, I feel like, because every half season I'll go like, oh, we were completely wrong. This is amazing. And then like the next half season will come out and I'm like, this is absolute garbage. What are we doing here?
Yeah. The show fluctuates between dumpster fire and, masterpiece very quickly. It's really hard to predict.
Yeah.
I mean, like it'll be killing it for episode after episode, and like eight in a row where you just nailed it, and then 3 where I could not possibly care.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I understand. I totally get it. Well, anyway, but what's your question about this season's Arrow? Might get me into it.
I don't know if this particular scene will. I mean, there's some fine points coming up, and you'll have a chance to wrap it up in general because the show is going to wrap up after a short run next season.
Oh, is that right?
They have 10 episodes.
Yeah.
Okay, now I like shows that have a beginning, a middle, and an end, so that might actually get me back into it.
It does have an end, but it's also on the CW, and superhero shows there, it's like cutting off the head of a Hydra. 2 more are coming after it. So this is not the end by any stretch.
And
probably,
they don't really...
Unless they literally kill it.
Some of them really kind of don't end. They do more like this is grotesque, but sort of more like my, when I was a kid... and I would ejaculate, I could shoot across the room. I remember one time I was having sex with a woman, and I saw sort of it's something like Mary thing happen where she had some of my ejaculate in her hair. That's how far I ejaculated, and now it just kind of goes.
That is impressive.
And now it just kind of goes. That's the best sound. And there's
just spills into existence.
And some of these CW shows, that's kind of how their finales are, just kind of.
Yeah, so. we fear the worst for it, but
particularly
it
Gotham.
Well,
Gotham. We'll talk about that too, but I digress.
There was a lot going on with that one. Question. I hate to go straight from ejaculate to what I'm about to describe.
I'm sorry. It just I have this weird circuit in my head that gives me these strange sort of juxtapositions, and then I have to say
strange one.
That's right. Anyway, go ahead.
So it's Dinah Lance, Black Canary,
Yes.
Now she's got Canary Cry in the show. She's
Wait,
the full version.
I thought it was Laurel Lance. Well, what?
Oh, there's many a canary.
Okay.
Many a canary have been. We're on one now that has the actual Canary Cry.
Who the hell is Dinah on the show, though?
You've not seen her yet if you stop in.
Okay, all right. But she is a Lance, though.
She's a proper Lance. But
she's
not one of our...
She's not related to anyone.
Right.
Okay, whatever. Okay,
It's stupid. It's stupid. They've already established Dinah Lance as being Laurel and Sarah's mother, but then they just haven't even brought her back in. Bring back Alex Kingston, but whatever.
Okay, so anyway, it's Dinah Lance. Who is the Black Canary in the comics that I've read? Okay.
If you had never watched an episode and you sat down and watched this, you would think that they'd established her from day one.
Gotcha.
Because she fits the mold most. I guess the most.
Okay.
So, a few episodes ago, someone just straight up slits her throat.
Okay.
You see why I didn't want to go from ejaculate to that. So, I mean, bleeding out. They find her in time. My real problem is like 3 weeks later, she's lost her Canary Cry now. She's got it, but it's like real super weak. It's just basically gone. But my real problem is like 3 weeks later, she's back at work.
Right.
And I'm just saying, any chance?
This is the kind of shit that drives me crazy as a physician, and I'll tell you why. And this will come around to what you're asking me about. If you have an 18-year-old basketball player and they die tragically, and we do CPR on them, the odds that 18-year-old basketball player in the prime of their life is going to survive is about 15%. We're no good at bringing people back from the brink of death, right, or from death itself. But our patients think we're a lot better at this than we are, and you know why? Because if they did a study on this recently, that if you have a cardiac arrest on a TV show or a movie, it's 76% chance that you will survive, and not only survive, but run around the rest of the movie. If you ever seen that movie, The Abyss, which I know you guys have. They're in one submarine and they got to get to the other submarine, but they only have one suit. And so Mary Elizabeth Mastrantonio says, just take me over to the other side. I will die, but then resuscitate me on the other side. And it's what they do. It's a brilliant plot device. They get her over there. Ed Harris is, doing CPR and mouth to mouth and pounding on her chest and going, breathe, damn you. And all of a sudden she goes, and spits out a bunch of water. And then she's running away from aliens the rest of the movie. It does not work that way. And
See, I've heard, though, for the same reason, I saw a study where there's a drastic difference in the percentage of people who go yes on the DNR from doctors to civilians.
No, that's right. And that's why. Because
doctors basically said, no, if I'm gone, just leave it. Leave me.
Doctors see the futility of this, and patients see what they see on TV and movies. Where else are they going to see it? They're not in the hospital every day. So this is the kind of thing. Now, this is complete and utter horseshit. If you slit somebody's throat in a very precise way, you could. There's this cricothyroid cartilage. There's cricoid cartilage and the thyroid cartilage. If you feel your Adam's apple, that's why I sound weird, because I'm feeling mine. But there's a place between those two, and you can, if someone has an occluded airway, you can stick a little penknife in between those two cartilages and open up a hole. You can stick in a pen even, or a bunch of straws or whatever, anything to hold it open, and you can do what's called a cricothyrotomy on them, and you can save their life. This is one thing that that we learn in trauma life support. If you do that and you pull that, that'll heal up in a matter of weeks to months, and they'll actually be okay. So if someone did a very precise slitting of Laurel's throat or of Dinah's throat, then yes, she could come back, and yes, it could screw up her vocal cords to the point where she couldn't do the scream anymore. But anything, when they do it in TV shows, they go from left to right. They do the old Jack the Ripper on them. And when you do that,
that was how this went.
Yeah, you're cutting jugular vein,
carotid arteries.
You're cutting carotid arteries on both sides.
It's going to go real quick then.
Without microsurgery, you're going to die from that.
Right.
So, that's bullshit. But yes, you could slit somebody's throat in a very precise way. That would be right, but that's not the way they do it on TV.
Yeah, as far as how the scene continued, she's found by a group of vigilantes who take her to a night nurse.
Yes.
That like an overnight shift lady.
Yep. Yep.
And she somehow makes it. So yeah, that bitch is dead, right?
Right. Yeah, she's dead.
Okay. All right. Well, I mean, thankfully for TV, we still have Canary.
She gone.
Or dead, or at best, I mean, if they were really incompetent and just did a very shallow cut, then of course nothing would happen if they just cut the skin. But that's, again, not what they were portraying on that show, I'm sure.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure she was bleeding out.
Yeah, there was a lot of blood.
Yeah.
Which was, for the CW, kind of, I'm kind of surprised they got it across, that scene in general. They don't like to show blood in certain situations. That's
right. Well,
weird, but
hell, Arrow, the first season, he was just flat out killing people.
Oh, yeah.
I loved that, though. I was like,
parkouring
damn.
and snapping necks, man.
Yeah, and he goes back to that every now and then. That's not completely out of the show. It's hard to predict. All right, let me get you the next one. Okay. Let's go into my question. This is a pet peeve I've been wondering about for a while. So the way I see it, the human race has evolved in certain ways, but one of them is we evolved fiction. So back at some point in our evolution, at some point there was the only story you knew was your own story.
Yeah.
And then it involved other people, and then at some point it involved maybe a religion or an over-encompassing story, but it's still really just your story. And then we started telling other stories, and myths happen, and legends happen, and eventually just actual narrative fiction happens.
Yep.
We're at a point now where I'll bet you watch probably at least 25 shows.
Yep.
Average person. I bet you listen to probably at least a dozen podcasts. Maybe you've got 4 or 5 books, or like myself, you've got 8 different books with bookmarks in them.
Yeah.
Depending on the mood you're in. And I've started to wonder, with all these fractured stories in our minds, is there any cognitive dissonance you think have you ever run across anything that would indicate this is actually maybe bad for us, or something we weren't prepared for?
I did a course on the history of fiction, and apparently back in the day, and I'm talking about Middle Ages, if it was published in a book, people thought it was real.
Just like it is if it's on the internet now.
It didn't matter. Right.
If it's on the internet.
That's a damn good point,
damn
Dr.
truth.
Scott.
Yep.
I'm gonna give you one of these.
Give yourself a bill.
Yep. And if you remember the Great Train Robbery film, it was a silent movie, and at the end, the guy pointed a gun at the camera and pulled the trigger, and everybody in the theater ducked. Now, if you see this now, you're laughing. If you show a photograph to someone in like an Aboriginal in, I don't know where it is, it's Papua New Guinea or one of those places where they don't ever see people, and they showed them a photograph.
Some Siberian places that
or they've never
are
seen
actually still isolated.
They've never sing anything, and they will show them a photograph of themselves, and they won't know what it is. It just looks like blobs. But if you have one of those things with a little lenticular screen that'll move, or you show them a moving picture, they'll get it. And then all of a sudden it coalesces in their brain, and now they can see a picture and see it for what it is. So
the idea of representation suddenly makes sense.
Yes, that's right. So there is some plasticity to our brain, and if you took you and me and never exposed us to some of these things, we would be the same way. And so as far as how it affects us, dude, I have no idea. There are studies that show that people who are addicted to their screens, it is doing them some palpable harm, and there's actually changes in the structure of the brain. Down the road, it actually might be a good thing, but it doesn't drive our evolution in any way, in the sense that it doesn't actually change the structure of the brain in generations to come, unless we start selecting our offspring or our sexual partners based on some factor that has something to do with this. And then now you'll have structures down the road that may change over time. But other than that, I think that's an impossible question to answer, but it's very interesting. And
hypothetically, though, someone who is too involved in story time is less likely to get laid.
Yeah, that's right. Well, if you remember the first time you and I talked, you had a baby. And I said, you're the one who's actually had sex, of the two of you. Now David's got a baby, so we know he's had an intercourse at least once.
No, I don't have a baby.
No, you don't? I thought you just had
a...
Oh.
I have a wife. Yeah. I'm married.
Oh, well, that doesn't mean anything.
But he has copulated. We've talked about it.
Yeah, but okay, well, that's good. Okay, I'm glad. But you're right. Yeah, if you're so involved in the screen that you don't have time or the inclination to have intercourse, you're not going to pass those genes down. That's probably a good thing. So
that's possible.
Yeah.
So you're betting on gray matter, though.
Yes.
You think there's enough plasticity that we can overcome this little?
Yes, I
problem?
think so. Did you guys ever read Stranger in a Strange Land?
Yes.
No.
Okay, well, David knows. In that book, the Martian language would actually change the structure of the brain. And if you learned, you could actually manipulate the environment around you. So the people that understood Martian could make things float or make things disappear bigger and smaller and stuff like that. And it was just purely from learning this language because it changed, as I said, the structure of their brain. I was trying to learn the Czech language, and it is the most effed up language I've ever seen. It's one of those Indo-European languages where the nouns change depending on whether you're talking, whether it's the subject or the, or the object of the sentence, or if you're taking action on it, or excuse me.
Don't die.
I'm dying. Damn. Hang on. I'll cut this part out.
I would help, but I don't know what the fuck y'all are talking about.
Fucking allergies. Yeah, only the people hearing this live are going to have to hear this cluster. Hang on a second. Sorry, boys.
It's okay. I have time to grab a drink.
You selfish bastard.
Oh, well, that hadn't happened in a while.
You're welcome.
So, this language, the nouns change depending on whether the noun is the subject or object of a sentence, whether you're doing action on the noun or the action is being done by the noun. And I could tell my brain wasn't plastic enough to get this. Now, if I had been born in the Czech Republic, I would be doing it automatically.
Yeah. Or if you were still 8 years old.
Or if maybe even younger than that, though. You know, if you have an infant and you speak 6 languages to them, they'll compartmentalize all 6 languages. They'll never speak German to the Spanish speaker, and they can just absorb them effortlessly. Whereas you and I mean, at least for me, it's very difficult for me to pick up a new concept like that.
Okay, that's awesome. I'm going to start speaking to my daughter exclusively in Spanish.
Well, are you fluent in Spanish?
No, I'm intermediate. But...
Okay, no, you should. You could pick a day of the week. I have friends. This has nothing to do with what you asked me, by the way, but it's just interesting. I have friends who are from Bangalore. Okay, so it's southern India. And they speak a language called Kannada. They also speak Hindi. And their kids can understand it, but they won't speak to them. So their kids really aren't bilingual. And I said, all you have to do, if you came to this country, just speak your language to your kids. They'll pick up English from TV, radio, their friends, and from school, and they'll be native English speakers. But if you want them to be bilingual, don't let them stomp their feet and refuse to answer you in your language. Just ignore them if they speak English to you. But it's too late now. Their kids are 15 and 16, and they really don't speak their language. But yeah, how old is your baby now?
Just turned 6 months today.
Well, there you go. You could pick Tuesdays and just speak Spanish to her. And
awesome.
And she would pick that stuff up really quickly. Or you could get a Spanish nanny. Here's another kind of cool thing. I have a friend who moved to China. She had a daughter that was born in China. And when she was 2, she took her to preschool. Maybe she was 3. And she said, this kid doesn't speak. I think she may be developmentally delayed because all she does is babble. When she went to pick the kid up that evening, they said, oh, no, she speaks just fine. She's babbling, yes, but she's babbling in Chinese. Mm-hmm. And my friend didn't speak Chinese, fluently enough to be able to understand what she was saying. And what it was they had a Chinese, au pair that was living in the house with them. And she spent all the time with this kid. And the kid had just effortlessly picked up Chinese and still speaks Chinese. It was crazy.
Wow.
That is awesome.
So anyway. All right. In other words, can you tell I have no answer for you on that one? I had to divert.
I didn't think that would like that. To me, that one's a series of studies. But
yeah.
All right, we'll give you one that's just more speculative.
Okay.
Humans at this very moment. Do we have anything going on? Because we're pretty cool.
Yeah.
Anything you would consider a legit superpower, like something you think we could, that if we didn't have it, we would be writing about it in comic books.
Okay, so I've thought a lot about this. Humans, live on a bell curve. There are people that are way far to the right, way far beyond 2 standard deviations of the mean. There was a guy in my class that you could give him 2 numbers between 500 and 600, and he could square them faster in his head than you could do it on a calculator. So you'd say 527, and he'd go 1,100, 111,526. It would be before you could ever even put the numbers in. That's sort of a superpower, but what use is it? I think of superpowers as being things you can fight crime or fight aliens with. So, so otherwise,
it seems to be a bit flashy.
Who cares otherwise? And if you think about it, Superman doesn't have just one superpower. The Flash.
No, he's just set.
The Flash has, he's fast and he's, one with the Speed Force, but he also has to have super healing. And if he's going to run at the speed of light, his skin, when he's doing that, has to be able to withstand, almost infinite friction, right? So that he doesn't burn up. So it's not just one superpower. He's got other things.
And it's so many ways you can apply his speed that now he can do phasing and all this other stuff.
Exactly, right.
Well, to be fair about his skin, they do give him a frictionless suit.
Yes, but he has
They do science fiction that.
That's true, but he has exposed skin, though, too. It doesn't cover his whole body.
He does.
They kind of say that the Speed Force kind of wraps him up in a little bubble while he's using it.
Okay.
It's a bit vague, but...
Yeah, there you go. I think
they did try.
Brian Michael Bendis, I think, came up with a way that Johnny Storm could be the Human Torch, that he had pores that would actually exude gas, and somehow he would ignite it, and so he could float around, with this gaseous, flammable gas somehow. It doesn't really make sense if you think about what Johnny Storm actually does. But there are people that really far exceed our abilities, and one of those are people that don't have the protein myostatin. This protein myostatin inhibits muscle growth. And people or animals that have this deficiency have larger muscles, very little body fat, and they have inherent super strength. So this is the sort of David, what was his name in Unbreakable? David Drake? No, that's not right.
It's been too long.
David Dunn.
David Dunn, thank you. Might have had...
Knew we could count on Dave.
Might have had a myostatin deficiency. There is a guy that is impervious to cold, and not only impervious to cold, but he, in that, he can tolerate it, but he actually can run on frozen tundra and doesn't get frostbite.
Yeah, I've seen him. He can raise his body temperature at will.
Yeah, that guy is. Yes, he can, and they put him in the laboratory and watched him do it, and that is a medical mystery. Again, probably some genetic change where he's able to mobilize burning fat to increase his body temperature, but nobody understands that guy yet.
No, if you're married, that's a superpower.
Yes.
Well, yeah, I mean, but the way you defined it, that may technically be a superpower. But who the hell cares? I can't write a book about it.
Right. He could fight, criminals
freezer burn
in the nude in the Arctic, I guess. But in
that isolated environment.
How does that help anything?
I really want to write that character now.
Marriage
treatment.
And I'm serious. He has the best marriage ever because he's never fighting about the thermostat.
That's right. Right. He can regulate his temperature. Yeah.
He'd be all the therapists.
So he would be a superhero to his wife, just like David said. That's exactly right.
Today's episode is brought to you by Angie. Angie has made it easier than ever to connect with skilled professionals to get all your jobs and projects done well. Let me tell you, there's the version of it where you try to do something at home, and then there's a version of it where you have someone help you, you watch them do it the right way, and you go, thank God I didn't try to do that myself. I have fully done things around the home that I think look good, and then a bang in the night, and I wake up to a shelf collapsing, a painting falling off the wall. Like I've seen it all go south. I own a home, and I can tell you, I know how much work it can take. Whether it's everyday maintenance and repairs or making dream projects a reality, it can be hard just to know where to start. But now all you need to do is Angie that and find a skilled local pro who will deliver the quality and expertise you need. Whatever your home project, big or small, indoor or outdoor, you can Angie that and connect with skilled professionals to get the project done well. Right now, one of my wish lists is I want a bike for my condo in Milwaukee, and I would love to rig it up on a pulley in the ceiling because I have one of those like lofted ceilings, but I'm so scared to try that on my own. Angie has 20 years of home experience, and they've combined it with new tools to simplify the whole process. Bring them your project online or with the Angie app. Answer a few questions and Angie can handle the rest from start to finish, or help you compare quotes from multiple pros and connect instantly, which means you can take care of any home project in just a few taps. Because when it comes to getting the most out of your home, you can do this when you Angie that. Download the free Angie mobile app today or visit Angie.com. That's ANGI.com.
There's Mary Lou Henner is an example of someone that has a
perfect memory,
hyper photographic memory. But you know what's interesting? So you can tell her any date, as long as it was a time when she was alive. She can tell you what day it was and what happened on that day. And she's got this diary and stuff, and she can quote certain newspaper headlines and things like that. But what's interesting is the psychologists say this is a super form of super narcissism because it's all stuff relating to her. So as long as it's related to her, she can remember it with this crazy eidetic type of memory. If it's related to anything else, she's got no clue. So
yeah,
that's
it was kind of like
fantastic.
if she was trying to remember as many digits of pi as possible, but you'd go 3.14159, I think it was. But you'd go down that same line the entire time. And somebody suggested, no, what she's doing is she's reliving her life over and over again every second and remembering it better because she's that narcissistic.
Yeah. It's called hyperthymesia, and it allows her to pinpoint the smallest details of her life on any given day. Now, if you want to read a book about a guy that had an insane memory, read Mind of a Mnemonist. And if you're looking it up, remember mnemonist starts with a silent M for the people who are out there listening. And this guy could remember huge lists of things that a psychologist gave him that maybe 10, 20 years later. And they could be lists of 100 objects long. And I remember one time he forgot a candy cane or something. And they said, why did you skip? He got 99 out of 100 10 years later. And he said, oh, the candy cane. Now I know why I forgot that, because when I was walking by, I leaned it against a brick wall, and when I walked by, I didn't see it. It was camouflaged. And that kind of gave some insight into how his brain worked. Isn't that interesting? That's a superpower.
That little piece of the brain palace didn't show up.
Yeah. And that's a superpower, but what the hell would you do with it? You know,
Well, I mean, I guess you could write Sherlock.
Yes.
But we've kind of done that, though.
Yeah, that's right. That's about it. So anyway, yes, there are people that have what we would consider sort of extreme abilities. Now, are they superpowers? Not anything interesting enough for me to make a super team out of them. Speaking of super teams, you guys are fans of Doom Patrol. We need to get the word out about this show.
Oh, yeah. Drop everything you're doing.
It's fantastic.
It is fantastic.
If you were looking for a reason to sign up for DC Universe, and I think they will eventually bounce a lot of their shows out to Netflix and internationally.
They
so
need
if you
to
can't get DC
eventually.
Universe right now, you will be able to see these shows eventually. But if you're looking for a reason, man, not only are they going to have every comic for the last 80 years is about to be, they're going to slowly add them onto the service. But Doom Patrol and Titans alone, they're masterpieces.
Yeah, it really is. My kids watch Titans with me, and now they're watching Doom Patrol. And my wife has been asking about Doom. I'm going to watch it all over again. I'm going to start from the beginning and watch it with her because I really think she's going to enjoy it. She liked Umbrella Academy a lot, and I think Doom Patrol is a lot deeper psychologically. For people who don't know, this is, you guys could probably explain it better than me, but the thing I like about it is it shows the psychological trauma of the shit that people go through if they actually had superpowers. I mean, these people are psychologically damaged. And I think most people, if they went through what they're going through, instead of going, hey, let's put on a suit and go solve crimes, they would be like that. You know,
Yeah, they're an absolute wreck.
Very psychologically damaging.
Oh yeah, and they explore it in depth. I mean, it not only it's kind of centered in some ways, some episodes around Crazy Jane, who's 64 different personalities controlled, 64 differently empowered superpowered personalities, all controlled by one non-powered Jane.
Right, and she's hot as hell too.
Oh, gorgeous. And I don't know how she keeps track of how she's playing all of the different versions of herself.
Yeah.
I mean, she's only doing a dozen or so right now. We haven't seen the whole canon, but that alone, like just her exploring herself, would have been by itself this huge exploration of the human mind. But then you and all the other characters are exploring something entirely different. It's fantastic.
If you watched and enjoyed Tatiana Maslany's portrayal on Black Orchid, was it Black Orchid? It is Black Orchid, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, then you'll love this because she only did, and it was brilliant, 5 or 6 different iterations of herself. This woman will end up doing 64 over this series. You know, they can mine this thing forever. You know, and just come up with other cool things.
Oh, there's plenty to do.
Yeah, Diane Guerrero is very, very good. She actually just recently did the Jessica Cruz character in Justice League versus the Fatal Five, but she did a fantastic job there. And just, I mean, it was an animated feature, but she doesn't sound like Crazy Jane at all.
Yeah, it's amazing.
And that was an animated feature where I would never show that to a kid. I mean, at minimum 11 years old for me. Just a ballpark, but still, it was. They did a great exploration of, like in the first few minutes, her and her friends are attacked on a camping trip, and she watches her friends get executed.
Wow.
This is an animated film, and then the first thing that she does is she wakes. They show her waking up in her bed alone, and she does the little mantra like, every day I'm getting better in every way. I think it's the old therapist phrase.
Yeah.
And she says it, and she sits at the end of her bed, and you just hear her say bullshit.
When is DC going to translate the real successes they've had on the small screen to, and I'm not minimizing. I'm one of the few that love BVS. I loved it. I particularly
we adore it.
The Ultimate Edition or whatever.
Right.
I thought that fixed all the problems with the theatrical edition.
I like to think of it as the unmitigated edition.
Yeah, there you go. Yes, very good, very good. But the depth of characterization, of course, having that long form, being able to do it over 13 episodes makes a difference. But I would like to see some of that translated to the big screen, because I think so many people have just gone, oh, DC, you know, they've lost it, or they've never had it, or whatever. And it pisses me off because the DC characters are characters I grew up with and loved my whole life. I started off reading Batman on the funny papers. You know, there used to be a Sunday Funnies version of Batman,
an actual comics version.
Yeah, and I would really like to see them somehow be able to merge this, because I'm seeing Marvel is getting ready to do this. I think their new TV things on the Disney Plus are going to be more akin to what they're doing in the MCU. And I'd really like to see the DC thing succeed for everybody.
Yeah, me too.
In numbers, I mean, as far as it sells, it has.
Yeah, right.
It's excelled. It's done better over 6 movies than Marvel did.
I agree. Totally agree.
So, and I loathe comparisons, so I'm only doing this for the reason that it's the only scientific way I can do it.
I do too, because I love everything.
Franchise.
You know,
right? So I only compare it to say that financially they're doing fine. It's just there was a wave of critical backlash, and I think it's because they kind of started with Superman. I mean, they started with the guy who started everything.
Yeah.
We all love these characters. 80 years worth of these stories. There's a version we love. There's a version we're attached to. There's a version we didn't like. There's a couple years where he had bad hair or something. Like, there's something.
Yeah, right.
But they kind of started with the big 3 over in DC, and I think that polarized it just by the very nature of us already being attached to these characters.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whereas Marvel did a very smart thing starting with B-listers.
Well, they didn't
have a choice.
They're about to have to find their way through the same murkiness, because every critic who craps on these versions of Superman and Batman, they're either old people who are really down with Christopher Reeve and that's their version of Superman, or they're really down with Adam West or Michael Keaton, whoever, and they don't want to accept anything else. Or they're millennials who are so hard-lined Marvel fans because they were like, what, 10, 15 when Iron Man came out?
Raised on it.
And they're like, oh, they're just trying to copy what Marvel's doing. Well, no, sweetie. Let's go back and look at these stories in the comic books. Most of these things came from DC first.
Oh, yes, they did. And Deadpool is a great example of that.
Absolutely.
He was a complete and utter ripoff. I mean, his name even rhymes with Wade Wilson. If people don't know what we're talking about.
Oh, yeah. But it's a real thing.
Slade Wilson, you know.
And that's fine. They did it all the time. Like the writers changed hands themselves. They would just get bored writing a series, and DC would call and they go, "Hey, you want to write this guy for a while?" And they go, "Hell yeah."
Yeah.
And then they'd be back at Marvel 5 years later, and no one cared. They didn't have camps. Like we invented these camps, and we're imprisoning ourselves within these camps.
Yeah.
This is all made up by the fans.
I love everything. I like Black Horse, DC, Marvel, IDW, all of those things. So I just want everybody to succeed. I just want good stuff out there.
Yeah.
But we know when Marvel gets into recasting of some of the bigger stars,
it's going to start again, isn't it?
It's going to start with the Marvel people. We're like, well, he's not as good as insert here.
Right.
Yeah, okay. I'm sorry, buddy.
How you feel me?
There's the passage of time. Sorry.
Really is true. There won't be anybody that's as good as Robert Downey Jr. And so I understand the people that say, well, there'll never be anybody as good as Michael Keaton as Batman. I do get that. And you're right. That's going to happen.
And we'll see it before that happens with the recasting of Wolverine.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. That one's going to be big. And they're going to have to.
Yeah. Yeah. He's too popular a character for them not to have him in the movies.
Right. And he's also, Hugh Jackman can't do that forever.
Yeah.
They can't build the next 10 years around Hugh Jackman.
Yeah.
And we've already seen it with Tom Holland. There are rabid fans out there screaming, Tom Holland is shit. Like, he's not as good as Tobey Maguire.
Oh, I never liked Tobey Maguire in that role. I thought those. My problem wasn't with Toby; it was with Sam Raimi.
And both of those people will beat you if you mention Andrew Garfield.
Yeah. I liked Andrew Garfield, particularly the first one. And we're getting real kind of Big Kev's geek stuff in this right now, so we got to get back to some medical stuff. But it's and I don't mean, hey, Big Kev, I don't mean that in a bad way. I just we're going kind of deep. But I loved the first Andrew Garfield movie, and I didn't like the first three Spider-Man movies. It was more had to do with I've never been a huge fan of Sam Raimi's storytelling style. Love Evil Dead, love Army of Darkness, but I just I think that these guys, the more modern versions, have done better storytelling, except for, of course, Electro. I really didn't want to not like that movie, but when you've got Gwen Stacy saying, I'm the only one that can turn off the power, and then there's just a big red knob that says power.
Yep.
Like,
how is she the only one that could push that red knob?
Yeah, that was hard to deal with.
But anyway.
And the first three movies, every time I think about it, I'm just like, no, you can't drown a son in a lake. Sorry, that's not how that works.
That's always what my hang-up is. Everyone always talks about Spider-Man 2 is the best. No.
Nope, can't drown a son in a lake.
No.
Not happening.
No,
I didn't have a problem with Tobey Maguire. I had a problem with the fact that Spider-Man didn't make jokes in those movies.
Yeah.
He was too busy crying.
Right.
Yeah.
I love
Tom. Understand.
I love Tom Holland. I love this version of it. I love that he was in the MCU. It's so cool seeing him sit there with Robert Downey Jr. and looking up to him as a mentor and stuff. I just love every minute of that.
Yep, love it.
I mean, the fact that he's as quippy and the fact that they made him as powerful as they have him right now are nailed it.
Yeah,
nailed it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he almost had that damn gauntlet off of Thanos' hand.
Oh, he damn near did.
But anyway, do you guys have any other medical questions?
I got two more.
Okay, cool.
One's kind of what we were talking about before. This one's about Superman. So there's a book that I did on our I review books on our Patreon feed, and one of the books I've been reviewing is Anatomy of a Metahuman.
Okay. Yes.
It's fantastic and it's gorgeous. So it goes through each one of the characters it pulls, and it kind of gives this the framing device is Batman is writing about all of the people in his life and what he would do and what he thinks they can do and like how they do it, basically, like
Right.
how he can further
Ooh, I like
his
that.
fight against crime by using their power. And
So
stuff.
it's written from Batman's point of view.
Right.
Okay,
It's
because
literally written
we all know
from the
that the
Batcave
first thing
guy.
he does when he meets a new metahuman is figure out how he can neutralize them
Exactly.
in case they go
And
bad.
Some of these are like Killer Croc's in there. You know, he didn't get Killer Croc's permission. This is just him speculating and you know, using blood from a crime scene where he beat his ass and shit like that.
Please send me a link to this. I have to read this book. This sounds great.
It's gorgeous. It's
Yeah.
wonderful. The first one though is he talks about Clark agreed to let me analyze him because he understands the usefulness of this, and specifically he says like Clark understands how dangerous it could be if someone got a hold of him, so he wants me to be able to take him down.
Sure. Well, he could get hit with some red kryptonite, and they would need to calm him down for a while.
Probably happened dozens of times.
Of
if we had him
course.
up.
Oh, by
I
the
think
way,
that was most
let me
of the
see how
late
deep
80s,
you
early
guys
90s.
are. Do you know what white kryptonite does?
Oh,
I used to.
You got us.
I used to have a whole list in my head that I could
did
remember
too.
it. And
I did
so
too.
young.
And I hope I'm not misremembering this. You might want to look it up. Dr. Scott has not participated in this conversation. Look up white kryptonite, Dr. Scott. I believe it kills vegetation.
Nice.
And
Here, I'll give you the
blue
background of Superman.
kryptonite didn't do anything. Of course, gold kryptonite robbed him of his powers forever. Mm-hmm. And then red
Remember that.
kryptonite would have, random effects on him.
Kills.
Plant life. Was that right?
life.
Oh.
Yep.
Nice. Well done.
All right. But anyway, okay.
So recently, by the way, you should look it up. Scott Snyder, who's he's running DC now.
Is he any relation?
Oh,
No.
it would be kind of neat, but in a way, it would probably be deleterious if he was.
Yeah.
He's rewriting the DC universe right now, and one of the things he's written in recently was a new form of. Wait, it may have been Tom King. It's one of those two. Sorry,
Okay.
I'm trying to remember it from issues ago, but he wrote in a new form of kryptonite that he actually gives a chunk to Bruce, and it will give humans their powers.
Oh, okay.
And Bruce kind of locks it away, like, I don't think that's a great idea, but I appreciate the gesture.
Yeah.
I
Interesting.
can't remember if it's King or Snyder, but one of those two. They're
Okay.
both great writers. All right, in this, there's one particular power he breaks. He goes through everything. He goes through his flying, which is this awesome electromagnetic explanation of why Superman can fly. There's his resiliency, his even his laser vision, even his breath, even the freeze breath. He goes through different kind of.
Okay.
Let's take science to the, reductio ad absurdum version of it and see what we get. And this one was maybe my favorite.
Okay.
He suggested, in this book, it's Bruce is suggesting, that Clark has plant-like cells and that they have cell walls.
Okay.
And that the cytoplasm is actually kind of a non-Newtonian fluid. So, I'm sure you know what it is, but it's basically a fluid that reacts almost the exact opposite of normal fluid.
So it's like a Bose-Einstein condensate or something like that, some quantum thing.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
But on a basic level, when you grabbed his hand and...
Okay. I love this shit. Go ahead.
I love my buttons. Like on a human level, when you grab Clark Kent's hand and you shake his hand, see that you're not agitating the fluid, you're not stressing it. So it feels like a hand.
Okay, got it. Like a super.
But when you strike him,
yes,
when you run a train into him, it reacts like a concrete.
Gotcha. You could make a
It's a
superfluid in your own home.
Oh yeah, it was like cornstarch and something.
Cornstarch and water, I think. And
Water? Is it just water?
if you get it to the right, Scott, look that up, will you? Cornstarch and water I think they're called superfluids. Mm-hmm. And when you agitate it slowly with your finger, you can put it right through it. But if you hit it with your fist, it'll be like, as Jason said, it'll be like concrete. And that's a real thing. That's interesting. Of course, Superman, it depends on the version of Superman, because there are some where he's godlike and completely invulnerable, and then others where he can actually be harmed. And that would be an interesting property for a body to have. Now, the question is, you have gas in your... I'm assuming Superman eats, and that he has a GI tract, and that GI tract goes from his mouth to his anus, and at some point he has to excrete something, whatever it is that he excretes. And if there's any gas in there, of course, that's still compressible. So you could injure that, even though this person became a superfluid when you punched them. They would have air-filled cavities in the body that would still be vulnerable to that increase in pressure, because the pressure doesn't just go away. When you punch somebody that hard, if you've got Doomsday punching you with some, million pounds of pressure per square inch, it doesn't just go away. That energy has to be transmitted somewhere. And if you've got hollow parts in your body, they're going to collapse and rupture and all that kind of stuff. And then the blood, of course, still got to keep flowing. So if it turns into a superfluid, it's not going to flow. Presumably, Superman needs blood to go to his brain and all that kind of stuff. Now, you could just presume that someone like Superman looks like us, but inside they're just a containment vessel for pure energy, and somehow it moves around and all that stuff. But then that begs the question, how does he have intercourse with Lois Lane and have a kid?
Right, the biology has to be somewhat similar.
There has to be something there
for the canon to kind of sit together.
Yes. Now,
I do like that you just proposed that basically Superman can be killed by a pre-fart.
Right. Well, that's right. Yes, like
that he needs to have a gaseous, what did you call it, an ablution before he goes into battle, or this could be harmful.
Right. That's right. Yeah, he would have to clean out his bowels completely prior to that, so he'd have to evacuate. So there could be this pre-battle ritual where he just shits whatever he would excrete from his colon to clear it out. But then, you've still got the chambers of the heart. You got all kinds of things that doesn't make sense. So I always sort of imagined that he was, a being of pure energy inside, except then that doesn't explain the whole red sun thing. So, you brought up
use the sun and the metabolism thing to explain that he doesn't really need any expulsions of any kind.
That's right. That's right.
He could actually be 100-something% efficient.
So he needs ultraviolet radiation that you get less of under a red sun, so he would be less powered. But Larry Niven, if you remember him, he's the guy that wrote Ringworld and wrote a lot of different science fiction things back in the 70s and 80s. He wrote a thing called Man of Steel, Woman of Kleenex, and I highly recommend that you read that, because he was just talking. You brought up reductio ad absurdum, which is the whole idea that if you take an argument and you can reduce it to an absurdity, you can prove that the original premise was incorrect. So, like if you say 1 equals 2, you can do a reductio ad absurdum, or sometimes that's the answer. Where you say the square root of 2 is a rational number, you can do some mathematical things and you come out with an answer that is patently impossible, like 0 equals 1 or 1 equals 2. And you can say, well, when you reduce it to this absurdity, it proves that the original premise is incorrect. And
then you can write RAAQED at the bottom of the paper, turn it in, and
there
go
you
start
go.
drinking.
Exactly right. Exactly. So Larry Niven kind of did that with Superman and said, if he had sex with Lois Lane, first off, the throes of orgasm, he would have to have, super restraint as another one of his powers, to not just rip her to shreds when he had an orgasm. And then if he actually ejaculated into Lois Lane, wouldn't his sperm cells also be superpowered, and wouldn't they, shoot fly through her body, instantly killing her, and fly around looking for eggs that they could fertilize in other women, so this is the problem with the whole superhero thing, which tells you why certain powers we would never see on this world, because if you think about them to any detail, you do get to this reductio ad absurdum where it's just impossible.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
But it's fun to think about. I just let it go. If we try to analyze this stuff, we'll never get anywhere. But it is fun to do, and I really do want to read that book.
No, you have to have suspension of disbelief, or this doesn't work.
Exactly right. Exactly right.
All right, let's do one last question where we completely suspend disbelief.
Okay.
Let's take Batman, who famously has no powers whatsoever.
Right.
That's part of his charm.
Except super detective abilities, which we've never seen in the movies.
Right.
But apparently
Yeah,
we're going to in this next one.
Apparently we're going to when Matt Reeves gets through with him, but we'll see.
Okay.
I mean, the closest shot you get is Keaton with his glasses on in the Batcave. But
Yep.
we're gonna assume we're gonna take the just entropy out of this thing. We're gonna assume that all of his gadgets worked correctly for the course of his Batmaning.
Right.
We're gonna assume that he didn't that human error didn't occur. That he is the pinnacle of human. He's the apex man. So we're gonna assume that he didn't just misjudge a rooftop one night and fall to his death.
Right.
Yeah. That his grappling hook didn't not catch on a gravelly rooftop where a maintenance guy left a bucket where he shouldn't have or some shit like that. We're gonna assume everything went smoothly,
right? And
that he started around. Dave, I estimate your one's about age 23. What do you think?
Yeah. Okay. We lose Dave.
I think we lost Dave. No, he's messaged me. I think he's gone. All right. We're going to assume that you're around age 23 was where Batman, finally has the costume. He's finally got the idea in mind. He's well trained. He hits the streets. This is when his Batmaning truly begins.
Yep.
He's got to go down at some point. Something's going to take him out.
Yep.
What is the physical injury? What would he be able to go to the Justice League with like a workers' comp claim? What is the thing that finally takes out Batman?
Yeah, it's deceleration.
How long do you think he makes?
It's deceleration every time. They show these guys jumping from the top of a skyscraper and then somehow landing on the ground. I see this every time I read a comic. They're jumping into some building and going through the skylight and then landing on the ground. Even if they break their fall using a bata whip or whatever he would use,
right.
some grappling thing, the amount of deceleration would rip his arms out of the shoulders. I don't care how strong he is. If you fall 10 feet, there's a finite chance, and it's not only non-zero, but it's non-trivial that you'll die. And so that's the thing. It's deceleration every time. And when I saw him take that hit in Justice League from Superman, and he smashed into that that van, the deceleration would have been the acceleration from the punch and the deceleration from hitting the van. No matter how awesome that suit was, if it was super fluidic or had some sort of protection in there, his body inside is still subject to those G forces, and that would have killed him instantly. So
you think the brain's still hitting the inside of that cranium?
Oh yeah, of course. It's just sloshing around in there, and we'll
just chilling.
We'll see people who hit their head from a ground level fall. Okay, ground level fall meaning they were standing and they fell. Not falling off of a platform or anything. And they'll get a concussion, or they may break their skull or get an intracranial bleed, or at the very least they'll get what's called a contra-coup injury, which means that the actual bruise in the brain is on the opposite side of what they hit, and that comes from the brain sloshing around in there.
Right.
So we always have to posit that these guys somehow have super healing power, or none of it works.
Oh yeah. Okay.
So anyway.
So you're saying deceleration and age 23 is when he also ends his Batman career.
Right. He dies at age 23. Exactly right.
Nice. Or is at least comatose or brain damage beyond any state of Batmaning.
That's why. Because look, there are other people. There are people in this world. Let's take John Cena just as an example. He's in as good a shape as Batman probably was. He may not have the martial arts and didn't have the training from the League of Assassins, but he could gain that.
Yeah, he'd fit the suit.
So, and there are other people. We could name other people like him. So there are enough people in this world that could be Batman, but where are they? There aren't any, and it's because they just get their asses kicked. Or they get shot, or it just doesn't work.
They can't actually produce batarangs that hit exactly the end of a gun barrel at the right moment.
Exactly. Which, by the way, the batarang in the finale, we can talk about. You guys talked about the finale of Gotham at length on your show, but when I'll just call him the Joker. When the Joker got hit with the batarang in his hand, and he looked at it and just had that maniacal laughter, that was
he was so happy.
Pure Batman, that made the whole episode for me. I didn't care if the rest of it made no sense. That was beautiful.
Yeah. The last few episodes were they try to do too much too fast.
Yeah,
but
that's
they
right.
But man, that moment was fantastic.
That moment was, I'll never forget that. It was a great Joker moment. I loved it.
It was pure joy, absolute pure joy on his face. He could not have been happier to have this injury. It was wonderful.
So
by the way,
yeah, go ahead.
Talking about falling from from literally standing.
Yep.
This cost me a vacation one time because me and the wife were about to go to Mexico, and I get a call from her saying like, "Hey, what are you doing?" I'm like, "What's wrong?" So I fell, and I think I broke my foot. I said, "What'd you fall from?" She said, "Well, we were walking, and I fell, and I think I broke my foot." I said, are you okay? And she said, "Yeah, I'm going to the doctor." I said, "Okay, can I ask you one quick question?" "Yeah." "How did you fall and break the thing closest to the ground?"
Right.
How does that work?
I don't know. It's, I broke my foot just walking on the beach because I'm old. And I was walking in sandals, and they didn't have any arch support, and I got a stress fracture. So a lot of times people got a stress fracture. Have you ever accidentally walked off a curb and didn't know it was there?
Oh yeah.
And that jolt that you get
That's
when
a
your
reflex
body
test right there.
Yeah, when your body isn't ready for it, even just that 3 or 4 inches can be enough to cause pain in your head, pain in your neck. We have to be ready for these things. The brain is an incredible thing. And
it's amazing how fast the adrenaline response kicks in.
Absolutely. And I'm just talking
absurd.
2 or 3 inches, much less a step like a 6-inch step or something like that. You can really hurt yourself. So,
yeah,
it's crazy. Well, I hate we lost David. We lost Dr. Scott too, because like I said, he hates this shit. So.
Oh well, he'll be back. I did get an explanation from David. The power at his house has gone out.
Oh, okay. Well, that would explain it. Okay.
That'll do it.
Well, I just want to make sure I didn't piss him off with intimating that he'd never had intercourse. So
no.
Well, listen.
He's at peace with both his image and his actual amount of intercourse.
Okay, good. I'm glad. You guys have my number one favorite podcast. Of course, I'm a big fan of DC. So DC On-Screen Podcast. You guys got anything else that you want to plug?
No. You already talked about our Patreon. We really appreciate that. The podcast itself is available free. Every week, we cover news. We're about to do a bunch of the finales. So if you do watch the CW stuff, it's May. Everything's ending. So we're about to be. It's finale month. Yeah. And we always cover. We always do a review of the season. So we're gonna have that coming up, and a few weeks later we'll finally get back to news.
Hey, Jason, hang on a second. My wife has called me twice.
Oh no.
So she never does that unless there's a reason. Hey, are you okay?
Steve?
Yeah, are you okay? We're recording.
Do I need a check to pay her?
Oh, yeah. Have you already left?
I can swing back by.
No, it's okay. Let me text her in just a second. Okay, we're just wrapping this show up. Okay, and I'll see if I can pay her. Oh, Jesus, she's mad. Is that my fault that she didn't bring a check with her? I'm the asshole. Okay. Anyway.
Just make it your fault to be safe.
Yeah, there you go. Exactly. You're married. You know how that is. So,
you can handle it. You can absorb that. It'll be all right.
You hear the music. I guess this is a good cue for us to get out of this episode, and we'll. I'd like to do this again, probably once a year.
Oh, sounds great. We'll still be around.
And here she is again. Wait a minute. Uh-oh. Hold on. We might as well play this out live. Hello.
Steve?
Yeah.
Do you need me to run by the house?
I'm going to text her and just see if it's okay if I pay her next time.
Well, I'm on my way. I'll be home in like 3 minutes. I'll have Liam run upstairs and get the check.
You got it. Okay, thanks. Sorry. Okay, sorry you forgot to bring money, but I'll take the hit for it. Okay, all right. Hey, Jason Goss and David C. Robertson, thank you.
With us in spirit.
Yeah, thank you very much for being on the show today and letting me do a geek show. If you guys ever need anything, give me a call. I'd love to be on your show again. I really enjoyed that.
No, we'll definitely have you back.
And it's been great kind of having this friendship that we've sort of figured out over the years too.
I've enjoyed it. I really have.
Yeah, me too. All right, take it easy. Let me get here. You all check out stuff.drsteve.com. That's stuff.drsteve.com for anybody who's still listening. Tweakedaudio.com. Offer code FLUID for the best earbuds for the price on the market. And go to simplyherbals.net. That's Dr. Scott's website. Or reward him for me putting him through a geek show today. If you want to lose weight with me, I'm down to my ideal body weight. Finally, first time since college. Noom.drsteve.com. That's NOOM.drsteve.com. You get 20% off and 2 free weeks so you can try it out. And don't forget, if you want to subscribe to the show, go to premium.drsteve.com. I'm not cool enough to have a Patreon, but premium.drsteve.com. Now, next show, we're going to be doing nothing but phone calls, and we've got a ton of medical questions to do. I've got a bunch for Dr. Scott in here, too, and I'm also going to preview the new loop synthesizer from phonicbloom.com, and we're going to do tit weight, sleep after sex, and meat sweats next week. Listen to our SiriusXM show on the Faction Talk channel, SiriusXM channel 103, Saturdays at 8 p.m. Eastern, Sunday at 5 p.m. Eastern on demand, and other times at Jim McClure's pleasure. And many thanks to our listeners whose voicemail and topic ideas make this job very easy. Go to our website at drsteve.com for schedules and podcasts and other crap. Until next time, check your stupid nuts for lumps, quit smoking, get off your asses, and get some exercise. We'll see you in 1 week for the next edition of Weird Medicine.